Are NASCAR fans too spoiled? We're going to discuss that. Plus, a big name may making its way to NASCAR, and NASCAR fans are calling out Kyle Larson for being a hypocrite. Yo, what's up everyone? My name is Jet. Welcome back to another episode of Inside the Lines. Hope you're all having a good evening. We got three resorts to talk about. Let's first talk about a fallout that took place from Sunday's NASCAR Cup race at Richmond. Now let's talk about Kyle Larson first. Now Larson had an interesting day. He even had a little bit of a contact with Denny Hamlin, moving him out of the groove. But Larson himself did not have such a good day. He didn't have a good car, was a lap down for majority of the race. But coming to the finish of the race, a lot of people are calling him out for being a hypocrite. Coming to start finish line, a Twitter video from Captain Bertha 7 shows a car riding the wall to the start finish line, wall riding. Now obviously we know the famous Hail Melon from Martinsville by Ross Chastain. NASCAR banned that move. That says you're not allowed to make that move again. But many saw this move take place and wonder, would the same rules apply? What was more interesting was the fact that it was done by Kyle Larson. Now the reason why it's interesting is because after Chastain made that move, this is what Larson said after Martinsville.
It's not a good look for our sport at all. I don't know what you guys think. You probably think it's cool, but I think it's pretty embarrassing.
Why don't you think it's a good look?
Why do you think it's a good look?
I don't know.
Why do you think it's a good look?
I don't know. Fans cheered, I guess.
So there are many people on social media that were calling out Larson for being a hypocrite, for saying you cannot be criticizing for, or saying whatever this guy did was bad, dumb, whatever the case may be, and then do it yourself. Well, I don't think that video tells the full story. First off, it doesn't show any good quality, but that's not really his fault. That's just, in the grand scheme of things, it was just unexpected. Recorded camera, wasn't really focusing on anything. But we do have footage of Kyle Larson's onboard camera that genuinely shows what was going on the final lap coming to the finish. So yeah, while Larson didn't, Larson kinda did a wall ride. It wasn't as egregious or obvious as Chastain's, nor did it look like Larson gained any spots. And if so, maybe he gained just one spot. But nonetheless, his move didn't really have an impact on where he finished in the race. So I don't think NASCAR is going to, penalize Larson or do anything like that, since it wasn't as egregious. It wasn't like Larson rode the entire turn 3, turn 4 wall. It just was coming off the corner. It looked like he was bouncing off the walls. So, but it was kind of interesting, the reaction from the fans of Larson criticizing Chastain's move, or not being a fan of it, and then proceeding to do it himself. One thing I've noticed, apparently a lot of drivers do a lot of hypocritical things. We know Hamlin and his hypocrisy, and Larson is kind of a hypocrite, because I don't think the wall ride was, again, it wasn't as blatant as Chastain's was. He did ride the wall, he did gas it up and was riding the wall, trying to get as much speed as he can to pass drivers. But I do find it interesting, drivers' reactions to one thing and then them doing the same thing themselves. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this story? Again, I don't think it was as egregious, but I can understand why people are calling Larson a hypocrite for that. Next up, let's talk about a new potential owner coming into the sport. Now, NASCAR lately has had a lot of new teams and a lot of big names, Pitbull, Justin Marks and Trackhouse, 2011 Racing with Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan. And now we could potentially be having a new owner. The most famous name in American racing, probably Andretti. Specifically, Michael Andretti. Now, Michael Andretti and Andretti Autosport, they're trying to take over all of racing. They're in Formula E, they're in IndyCar, Indy NXT. I think they're in Formula X or Rally X. There's some type of electric rallycross series. And they're trying to make their way into Formula One. Now that has been obvious. They have been trying to make their way into F1. Looks like they may be able to get it done in time for the 2025 season. Who knows? But they've been trying to take over all forms of racing, including NASCAR. Now, NASCAR and Andretti is nothing foreign. In fact, Andretti has been trying to join the sport since 2012, when a rumor / possibility, real good chance that Andretti wanted to join NASCAR in 2012, with Dodge being part of the team and having Kurt Busch as a driver. But things, didn't come to fruition, and that plan fell short. Well, now it looks like that the plans of Andretti coming to NASCAR are back up once again through the sponsor Gainbridge. Now, Gainbridge's parent company is Group 1001. The president and CEO of that company is Dan Torres. Sorry if I butchered that name. And he is a co-owner of Andretti Autosport with Michael Andretti. So those two obviously have a very, very close relationship. So when it was announced earlier in the year that Gainbridge will be sponsoring Spire Motorsports in a multi-year deal with Corey LaJoie and Ty Dillon on those two cars, speculation went rampant as could this be an entry for Andretti to go into NASCAR. You couple that with the fact that Gainbridge has been getting into stock cars for some time. They were part of Rev Racing down in like the Arca Menard series, that type of league. Then they moved up to trucks with Nick Sanchez, and now they're into cup racing with, like I said, Spire Motorsports. So you have that connection. Spire with Gainbridge sponsoring Spire Motorsports. Gainbridge owned by Group 1001. The president and CEO of that co-owns Andretti Autosport. Andretti has said they want to be able to have a team across as many racing platforms as possible. You can start to make those connections. Even Michael's son even drove a couple of NASCAR races, including this year in trucks for Spire Motorsports at Mid-Ohio. Now, of course, the issue with this is money. In recent months, we have seen the charters that were up for sale topple at least $10-20 million, with Sports Business Journal reporting that it could possibly be a big possibility that the next charter could be up as high as $30 million. And that's not even including the shop itself, cars, and all of this stuff. Now, when many people are saying that there's a possibility, or at least speculation, let's just say that if Andretti were to enter into NASCAR, they could simply just buy up a charter from Spire Motorsports. Spire has two charters. And I think personally that the 77 is a car that they're not really focused on. Maybe it's the driver, or I think it's just the fact that they're more focused on the 7 car. The 7 car outruns the 77 car by a mile compared to Corey LaJoie and Ty Dillon. I won't be surprised if Spire Motorsports just focuses on the one car they have in Corey LaJoie and just releases the second charter off to Andretti Autosport. Andretti has said that they would have a purpose-built space for a cup team with their new facility, their headquarters, which should be around $200 million and have over 575,000 square foot facility to be able to handle all the different types of motorsports. So they would have a spot for a cup team if they were to get that charter. And I think that it is a real possibility that maybe 2025, I don't think it's going to happen by next year, but maybe in 2025, I think there's a good chance that we could see Andretti into NASCAR by them buying one of Spire Motorsports' charters, which would be awesome to see, because I would love to see Andretti in NASCAR, and also be pretty cool to see, hey, if Andretti's in NASCAR, I mean, what are the drivers? Who are the drivers that could come over to that team? I feel like Andretti, they would have the money to be able to, to be a competitive cup team, not a team like Spire riding in the back, or, a midfield team. I feel like if Andretti were to come to NASCAR, they would be a top team. They would have the money to be competitive at least. But yes, I think having Gainbridge sponsor Spire Motorsports could be planting the seeds for a bigger plan for Andretti in NASCAR down the line. And finally, let's talk about the reaction from the fans on what they thought of the race Sunday at Richmond. Now, Jeff Gluck's poll, his race poll, did you like the race at Richmond or did you not? Now, currently at the moment, there is still about 13 hours left, but already 18,000 votes, 54% said it was a good race, 46% said it was not. And I was shocked by it, especially the reaction that said it was a boring race, that nothing happened, this and that, yada, yada, yada. And I discussed a little bit about this on my race review on Sunday, but I genuinely believe that because of how NASCAR has been perceived in recent years, I think NASCAR fans are spoiled. Brad Keselowski said this after the Richmond race on his thoughts about the race, and I thought it was very eye-opening. Take a listen.
When you don't know if it's going to be a 10-lap run or a 100-lap run, you have to make choices with how you drive the car and how you set up the car and how you approach the entire weekend as a team. And that creates all these different variabilities throughout the field that I think makes racing just fun as hell. From the driver perspective, when they dropped the green at the start of stage 2, and I was just digging, and I'm in the back of my mind going, oh, God, please don't let this go long green flag run. Because I know I've burnt the rear tires off this car. That part to me is fun. That's the challenge. It feels like there's a game of, chess going on, and you're trying to play it as smart as you can, and trying to, have the feedback loop with the team so they don't over adjust because you burnt the tires off, and all these different things. And that's what cup racing to me is. That puts it in a spot when you have racing like this that makes elite drivers want to be in this series. And I think that's really important. And you've heard me say it a couple times, Jordan, is we need this series to be a series where the format rewards elite talent. And if you continue to strip things out of it that elite talent does well, you're just going to drive them away, or they're not going to rise to the top. And that's not good for us. So, I think in that light, yeah, I love the fact that there was a long green flag run today. Obviously had a fast car and it favored us to some extent. But there's weeks where it doesn't, and I think that's part of what makes cup racing special, certainly last week.
And I think that's very eye-opening, and to me, I think that makes good racing. I think it's good to have, don't get me wrong, it's nice to have those like action big moments of what we saw at Pocono. Those moments that are like, wow, can you believe that? But it's also good to have races like what we saw on Sunday that maybe there was not a lot of action, but from a racing purist perspective, it was a great race. If you're someone that's all about action, all about being and bang, things like that, big moments, probably wasn't an entertaining race for you. I'm not here to say you should have liked Sunday. I'm not going to say that. If you didn't like Sunday, then you didn't like Sunday. But what I will say is that I believe that today's NASCAR, because NASCAR has done a lot of things to make racing more exciting. The high downforce package, the playoffs, elimination races, stage racing, and all this stuff, overtime. All this stuff is done to make racing more entertaining, to create more big time moments that I think has kind of spoiled NASCAR fans, that I think a lot of NASCAR fans forgot what a pure race was like. It's not their fault. I just think it's because what they've been watching is all about entertainment. Today was one of those races you had to take a step back and like, whoa, wait a minute. This is what NASCAR was like back then. To me, it was like it was a blast from the past type of race. Long green flag runs, tire management, strategy. Yes, it didn't have a lot of moments, and don't get me wrong, the Richmond race could have been a lot better. I'm not saying Sunday was a great race. I'm not saying it was amazing. There are sort of been a lot better Richmond races. Don't get me wrong, even from a strategic perspective. But I thought it was still a decent race. And I think for people to say it was boring because there was nothing to talk about on Monday or Tuesday, I think that's the wrong way to go about it. There could still be a good race, and you may not have any moments, but it could still be fun. It could still be entertaining. I mean, there's still some stuff you can talk about from Sunday. The fact that Hendrick struggled, the fact that RFK is back and, they're now playoff contenders, that Chris Buescher back to victory lane. There are some things you can talk about. Maybe not moments, but storylines you could take from Sunday, and you could transition that over to this weekend at Michigan. I don't know. Those are my thoughts on this. I thought it was very interesting, the conversations that we saw on social media about what fans nowadays view as a good race, or whether, they think a race needs to have those moments. But those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content. Until next time, my name is Jett from MDK. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.